Hi, everyone. How are you? How is everyone today? Are you all ready for the holidays? My name is Mickey Hudson, and today we are going to be covering the mySewnet embroidery software, and we're going to be playing with Fringe. I'm going to be showing a couple of things with silver, a little bit more with the gold level, and then, of course, most of it is going to be with platinum because that's where it's at. I am going to switch to my computer so that you can see what I'm doing. And I am aware that it is a little bit fuzzy. I do keep working on that, and I am desperately trying to figure it out. But do bear with us while we figure that out. But when I talk about Fringe, what am I talking about? So I've got a couple of samples here. So on the in the super designs, there is a category that's called tassel, and that's what this is. It's just fringe. So fringe is a lot of fun, and you can find it on the mySewnet library. You can find it in your super designs, which is available on silver, gold, and platinum. And today we're going to talk about how to create some so that we can have a little bit of fun. So this is some of the stuff that I played around with getting ready for today's lesson. And there's a couple of things here where I used the silver level. And then there's more where I use the, I'm so sorry, the gold level. And then in digitizing, I do apologize. Now, this little kitty is missing an eye because I goofed up here. So I decided to go ahead and keep it included so that I could show you where I goofed up so you won't have to make that same mistake. But you'll see here where I stitched it out again. So I'm going to show you how it will stitch out if you want to create eyelashes on faces and stuff like that. All right. And then I also did play with fonts. And then I stitched one letter out so I can show you how it works. All right. So if you've never played with Fringe before, it creates this little fringy looking, fun, furry. It's super cute. So everybody collectively, ooh, ah, wow. All right. And if you've ever been in class with me, you know that is a requirement for my classroom. So I'm going to be working mostly on the Windows version of the mySewnet embroidery software. But for my Mac owners, you know that I do kind of show, if there's any big difference, I will show it to you on the Mac as well. But when you're going to open up, and by request, I've been asked to show how to even open the software. So there's been quite a few of you on my travels that have asked about that. So once you get it installed, then you will get this little icon on your screen, on your desktop. And this is your mySewnet. And when you double click and open this, you will only have the tools folder and one of these. I have two for a reason, but I'm not going to get into that. But you'll have the tools folder and you will have an embroidery folder. The tools folder is where you will find all of the modules individually. And most importantly, this is where you will find your configure. So if you want to change anything, I'm just going to double click and give it a second. But if you want to change anything in your software, this is where you will do it. You can sign in and sign out. You can change your utilities. You can change your appearance. You can change how things are going to import. And you can also change how things are going to export. So give yourself an opportunity to go into configure and poke around and look around and see what those things are saying, because I'm not going to be spending a lot of time here. But if I go back, and then if you double click on embroidery, it will open up. And then once you have it open, you will have its little icon down here, down below. And if you right click on that little icon, and that's a right click, you can pin it to your taskbar. And so that will now just live down here. So I don't go to my folder anymore. But for your first time, you will come to the folder, you will open it up, double click on the embroidery, and then come down and right click on and pin it to your taskbar. Once you have it in your taskbar, it's just a little single click. And then you do have to wait because it does take a hot minute to wake up. And so once it comes up, that is how you're going to open up your software. Now I'm going to jump over to the Mac for a minute because it's the same thing. You will go to your Launchpad and you will find your apps here. Now you can stack your apps just like you can with your phone. So that is what I've done here, where I've stacked my mySewnet apps so they're all together and they're all labeled mySewnet embroidery. This is your configure. And for the first time, you will come here and double click to open this up. And then once you have it open, you too can just come down into your dock, right click, you will come to options and keep in dock. And then once you do that, it'll just live down here. So it's the same kind of deal. Everybody good with that? Are there any questions on that? And for those of you that have asked, hopefully that will answer your question.
I don't see any questions about that yet, Mickey.
Okay. Yeah, that was just a little sidebar just because I've been asked so many times while I was out on the road. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and start with a blank project or blank canvas. And I'm just going to, I've been playing with the 260 by 260 hoops, so I'm going to select that. And one of the first things that you see here is this little guy here. So if you wanted to make just a little dandelion, and you can see here he's got some fringe. I didn't undo all the fringe, but you can create a little dandelion. And this you can do with the silver. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to my frame tab. And the new feature that we have on the frame tab from silver on up is the hold down shape. So what I want, this is great if you want to add a monogram to like a terry cloth towel or fleece or anything that has a high pile. It will hold down the pile of the stitches and then you can stitch your font. But one of the nice things is this can be used for many other things too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and I'm going to click on the hold down shape. And we have all the shapes to choose from that we find throughout our software. And I'm just going to go ahead and click on a circle. And I'm going to just keep it at terry cloth. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to edit the fill. So when I edit the fill, I can choose a motif patterns. I can choose fill patterns. I can choose all kinds of stuff. But what I'm going to do, and then this is another nice thing that the mySewnet embroidery software allows us to do, is we have quite a collection of categories in the universal category, in the universal group. But we also have the FAF group, and we have everything but the exclusive stitches, but we have all these wonderful stitches. And then we also have Husqvarna Viking. And again, we have all of the wonderful stitches except for the exclusive. And so for those of you that may own one brand over another, this is a great opportunity to play with some of the other stitches. which is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to play a little bit in the Fluff, and I'm going to play a little bit in the Husqvarna Viking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to my Fluff, and I am going to select the cross stitch. So there's quite a few cross stitch to choose from, but I just want the X. So this is the FOF category 3.1 cross stitch, and it's stitch number 1. And I'm just going to leave everything else the same. And I'm going to tell it, oh, I want to go to spacing. Right now it's defaulting at -45 and -50 for vertical and horizontal. And I do encourage you guys to get in there and play with it and see what does this do. And you can experiment with the numbers. In the negatives will bring things closer together, and the positives will make things farther apart. But get in here and take a look. And we have unlimited undos. So if you click OK and you click apply and you hate it, you can undo and play with it again. So it's a great way to just play with the fills and everything else. So if I had a font in here, it would select the shape and kind of go around the font. But because I have nothing, it fills the hoop because I've told it to fit and fill the hoop. But what I want to do is I'm going to change the shape or the size of this. And how I'm going to do this is I'm going to come into one of these corners here. And if I hold the shift key while I click and drag, it will keep everything proportional. What I mean is if I do not hold the shift key, I can make it long and skinny, and I can do all this kind of stuff. I'm going to go ahead and click undo. And I'm going to hold the shift key. And now he's going to shrink up proportionally. So I'm just going to make him quite small. And all I'm going to do for this is just create a base for my stitches. So just giving them a little something to stitch onto. And you can technically do this without, but I wouldn't have been able to show you the new hold down shape if I didn't. So from here, while we're still in the frame tab, we can come over here to the motif. And with the motif line, we can pull in some of those decorative stitches. And I can select a length that I want, or I can select a number of stitches that I want. In this case, I'm going to say I just want 1 stitch. And I'm going to come over here to select motif. And in this case, I'm going to select the Husqvarna Viking. And I'm going to come on down to the N as in Nancy menu, embellishment stitches. And what these will do is these have little spaces for those little hot glue crystals. So they're really cool if you want to add some crystals to your designs. But down here, we have fringe stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and select a fringe stitch here. And I'm going to have the repeats. I just want 1 stitch. So I'm going to tell it to apply. And so now I have the single stitch here. I'm going to zoom in so you can see a little bit better. Now, when you zoom in, we have quite a few options to zooming in down here. I can zoom to fit or zoom to rectangle. I can zoom to fit. Zoom to fit will back out to the entire hoop. But zoom to rectangle, not right now, not right now. Zoom to rectangle will allow me to zoom into an area. Then I also have the slider bar here. I do apologize for that. My granddaughter just got home from school, and she usually comes down and says hello. And so that's what she was doing. I personally like 1 of the ways to zoom. You may like another. I know Janie Lance. She likes the slider. She feels like she has more control that way. This is the wonderful thing about the embroidery software is we all do things differently. So like some of my long-term digitizers, when they watch me doing this, they're going to go, why is she doing it this way? Because I want to. And that's the beauty of it. If you are getting results and you are happy with your results, you're doing it correct. Right. There's always easier ways to do things, and that you'll learn along the way. But as long as you're getting the results you want, you're doing it right. And that's what's really so cool about this. But I'm going to come over here and I'm going to, first of all, I want to change the color because I'm going to create a little dandelion. So I'm just going to change this to a white, and maybe not because it's impossible to see. Can you see that? Nope. Let me change it. Okay, we're going to have hot pink dandelions here because I want you guys to see. There we go. So with this guy, you can come and I'm going to duplicate. So I'm going to come over into the film strip, and if I'm going to go home, but if I were to copy and paste, it's going to create one right on top of it, the other. And if I click on duplicate, it's going to create a copy a little off center. So there's times and places where you want to copy and paste, and there's times where you're going to want to duplicate. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come and I'm going to select this one design, and I'm going to come over here to Encore. Encore is awesome. So I'm going to keep it at a circle because I'm going to be working on a circle. And I'm going to keep the repeats at 6. And I'm going to keep it as grouped. What this is going to do is once I click apply, this will it'll already group it for me. And I can turn that off or I can leave it on. But I'm going to go ahead and click on preview. And I am going to cancel because I want to flip this over. And this is the wonderful thing in Encore is until I hit apply, I can change it with just by canceling and then previewing again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I can resize this and create a ring of dandelion, little wispy things. So here you can see that it's grouped. When you see orange, that means it is grouped. The icons here all have meaning. So this is like coming from, it's an embroidery. This is an object because we created it with one of the little apps, the built-in apps. Now, when I'm doing Fringe, one of the things that Fringe does not like is it does not like embroidery on top of it. So I'm starting from the outer side and working my way in so that I can keep all of that clear. So then I'm going to come and grab another one of my little embellishment stitches. And I'm going to change this down to 5. And I'll click on preview. And again, I'm going to cancel because I want to flip this over. And I'm going to go ahead and flip this guy over since I tend to forget. And I'm going to change it to 5 and I'm going to preview. And I'm going to shrink this on down. Now, some of you are noticing that there's an extra stitch in there. And I do agree. So what is happening, if I zoom in here, there's an extra stitch. Now, when it comes to the software, we have the 3 levels. So there's silver, there's gold, and there's platinum. And silver it's great. You get all the super designs, you get the embellishment, you get the frame, or the Encore, you get the frames, all that kind of stuff. But what silver doesn't have is the modify tab, and that you will find in the gold along with the wizards. But in my humble opinion, modify is a must have. And so when people are on the fence and they ask me, which should I get? Just get the gold. So if you're on the fence between gold and silver, just get the gold because you're going to want to trade up anyway because the modify feature is really a must have. And if anybody's in the comments that agrees with me, make sure that you tell them because it's not just me. So I'm going to click, select this guy, and I'm going to come over to modify. And modify will allow me to change stitches. So as you can see, there's these extra long stitches off to the side on either side. And this is what modify allows me to do. So I can come in here. Actually, I'm going to make this a little easier by rotating him 45. No, rotating him 45 degrees. You'll just be able to see the selections better. But I'm going to come in, I'm going to select this little guy here, and I'm going to delete that. Okay. Then I can come up here and select stitches, and I'm going to come and select this stitch and just move it in. So you see how I've gotten rid of that little excess stitching out there? And I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to come and box select, and I'm going to delete. And now I've gotten rid of my stitches. And if I go back home, you can see here now that I have just the little design. Okay. Ooh, oh, wow. So now I'm going to go back to Encore, and I'm going to change the repeats again. And I think I did 4. I'm going to preview. I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see what I'm doing. I can't even see it. Oh, cancel. All right. So now I'm going to preview, and I'm going to squish him on in here and put him in the center. But this is how we can create a little dandelion, like you're seeing here. Okay. And it's also how I created these little stitches here. So this is a different design, and I just put in the little flowers here. And let me show you what I mean here. So I'm going to go back to my computer. Now again, this is where modify is so awesome because I am going to come down to my flowers and leaves. I think this is where I got it. Nope, I got it in borders. So I'm going to come down here. So all the levels, silver, gold, and platinum, all have these super designs. And these super designs are awesome. All right. So this, I got it from the borders selection. And I clicked apply, and I can make him bigger. And I'm going to rotate him. I'm going to make him a little smaller. Because I want him to be in proportion to the stitches. I'm going to go ahead and rotate him 45 degrees twice so we can get him up and down. Now, once again, this is where modify is going to come in. I know I need. All that said is you have to have a design selected in order to click modify. So I have to select the design. Right now that has the green tabs on the design right now because super designs are editable. So as you can see, I can resize it and do all this stuff without having to go up and click resize. I can change fills. So if I want to change the fills, I can. So you see that went from a satin stitch kind of fill to a decorative fill. I'm going to click undo so you can see. You see how it went from one fill to another? There are over 250 fill patterns to choose from with this software, so it's quite fun. But these are the green handles, which means it's editable. When I click modify, it's going to say it's going to fix it as stitches. Once you fix something as stitches, it is no longer editable. Then you're going to need modify to play with stuff. So I'm going to tell it go, okay. So here I have the little green vine and the little flowers here. Over here on my design panel, I have the colors. So I just want to hang on to the green. So I'm going to uncheck the green, which will allow me to select all the visible stitches and delete. So now I'm just left with the green vine. You guys all seeing that? And then I'm going to come back over to my frame tab. So I'm going to select the frame tab, and then I'm going to click on the motif underline, and I can select the stitch. However, because I've already done that, and I've already modified it, I can come and select this group, and down at the bottom of my film strip, there is reveal groups. So I can come and reveal the groups, and I will come and select this, and I can go home, and I'm going to copy, and I'm going to paste, and I'm going to bring him over here. So do you see how I am able to use my film strip? I love the film strip. If you don't have the film strip, you're missing out. The film strip does make things so easy. Everything is right here. I can see where everything is. I can break things apart. I can group things up. Very, very easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come and zoom to rectangle here. And I came here and I just created, and I'm going to go ahead and duplicate. And I've just flipped it over. And I was able to create a little flower right there. Then I can come and I can select from my film strip. I'm going to just click on one of the little flower pieces here, and I'm going to hold my shift key and click on the other one. And I can come up here and I can tell it I want to group this. And then I'm going to duplicate this. Sorry, my mouse is acting up. And I'm going to go ahead and put this up here. And then I can duplicate and I can put this up here. So here I am just showing you some of the ways that you can play with some of the built-in features. And really, if you just play with your imagination, these little embellishment stitches can be fringe around buttonholes and just all kinds of super cute stuff. So if you have little girls or you want to have home deck projects or quilts or anything like that where you want to add fringe to, it's really, really easy to do. So are there any questions about anything I've done so far? So this is with the silver and the gold level.
There was a question about searching for fringe stitches. I'm getting some clarification, but Maybe you might know what they mean.
So in the, sorry, I'm just dropping stuff. So in the software, the mySewnet embroidery software, if you come over to Super Design, and there is a categories, there's categories. And in the Super Designs, they are not called Fringe. It's called tassels. And this is where you can find the little tassels. So here's the little witch, for instance, that I showed you earlier. So this is the little witch. Let me make her nice and big. Oh, she's a little too big. So one of the things, you can see how my stitches changed here in this area. It's letting me know I'm getting a little too big for what it wants to do here. But this, and if you notice her, she's got this gray hair. I have colorful hair. So that's what I did. Because I have the software, I was able to go in and put in color changes. And so I was able to do purple and pink and all that kind of fun stuff. So I just changed the way she looks a little bit. But it's interesting because this was how I often deconstruct embroidery designs to see how they're done. So I wanted to create some fringe of my own. So what I mean is, these are the fringe. So there's a couple of them. Let me zoom back out. There's a couple of them. All right. So this is all fringed. Her little tassel here. Her hair is fringed. And so I just kind of zoom in. I've brought it into digitizing, but you can zoom in. If you click on the View tab, you can go to 2D View.
Mickey, we can't see your screen.
You're just looking at me staring, huh? So let me undo this. So in the Super Designs, I just clicked on a different choice. And here, this little tassel here is fringe. Her hair is fringe. But this is kind of where I started playing with fringe. So I selected the View tab. I click on 2D. And that, if I zoom in, I can see kind of what's happening here. If I click on Modify, not that, select a design. If I click on Modify, I can actually see the stitches. So the fringe itself is just this long stitch, and then it's being secured by another stitch. So when this is cut away, it turns into fringe. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Nope, you don't want to see this. You want to see this. So here I just wanted to stitch that. This poor kitty got, damaged eye here. So I wanted to create the eye where I fixed it. So now if you look on the back of this, you can see there's my bobbin thread right there. And with fringe, you're just going to come and clip that bobbin thread and clip it out. This is actually a long enough stitch that I could probably grab that and pull it. But I'll just clip that out. But you need to make sure that the base here is secure so that when you pull the fringe out, it will not unravel on you. We still have some stuff there. There we go. Let go. then I can just pull this out and give her eyelashes. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? Yes, it's cool. Agree with me, because it is. And it's the same with the font. So with this font, I did the same thing because it's just a long stitch with a secure on it. So a secured stitch on it. So if I click this, put this over, and I just clip along the bobbin thread, having all the right tools. I'm usually a chef. If you've ever seen a chef on cooking shows and they have 20 different knives, I'm the same way. I just don't have the right. The little scissors with the very, very sharp point on it, the little thread snips with the very, very sharp point, those are my favorite. So I've just trimmed away this bobbin thread. And when you come to the right side, you can just give it a fluff up. And what I will also do is hit it with the steam on my iron, and that helps too to fluff it up. But isn't this cool? But you can create this fringe embroidery, this fringe font. So when you give it a little blast of steam, it'll become quite fringy. And you can make them different widths. You can experiment with different widths. You can experiment with different densities, all that kind of stuff. But I'm going to show you how I created that. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go select the Home tab. And I've already got all this saved. So I am just going to, I want to go back to view. I like my 3D, not realistic, my 3D view. And I'm going to select the Home tab. And I'm going to select all, which is right here. And then I'm just going to delete them because I've already saved these designs and been playing with them. All right. We are now in digitizing. So we've played a little bit with the silver. We've played a little bit with the gold. But digitizing is the big box of crayons with the sharpener on the back. This is where you really can have some fun. So I'm going to select the Create tab, and I'm going to come over here to digitizing. Now I'm going to click on digitizing and give it a minute. This little window we do not touch. This little window is if you manage to get this window, this digitizing window lost, you can find it with that. If you click on Show Me, it'll bring this back up. If you're done with it, you can click on Finish. But what happens if you click on digitizing and that little window pops up and you click on Finish, it's going to close digitizing. So you're not going to get anywhere. Now, when you click on digitizing in the Windows version, you get this little pop-up window. Mac, you have all these things as well. It's just all of your little guys are going to be up here. And so you don't have to go through this window. It's just a different way of getting to the same thing. But what I want to do here is I'm going to go ahead and load or create a background picture. And I'm going to click Next. And I'm going to load a picture. And what I did was, nope. There we go. Choose font. Okay. So how I got this font was I just opened my Word or Pages or whatever kind of text format that you use. And I just went through and played with some of the true type fonts and found one I liked, and this is what I came up with. So from there, I just took a picture of it. And so I just saved the picture, and that's what I'm using here. And here I can select the size. I can do all that stuff. I can crop it. I can do all of that. With this, I'm going to go ahead and change. Well, I'll just leave the hoop. It's still at 260 by 260. And I'll click finish. So now I've got my background to play with. All right. Everybody with me so far? Are there any questions? All right. Now, what we have in digitizing is we have the 3 create tabs. So quick create is, let me untie my tongue. Quick create is kind of like point and shoot. It's really quick, down and dirty. You can still modify it and change it and do all that kind of stuff. But let me show you what I mean. So I've got a pattern fill here is selected, and I've satin selected. I'm going to go ahead and unselect or deselect the satin just by clicking on it. And you see how it's now just the pattern fill? And if I click on quick stitch and I click here in the black area, it's going to automatically select that area and fill it in. Uh-oh, it just made a circle. So I'm going to go ahead and click undo. Quick stitch will fill in the area, but then right next to it, we have quick stitch with auto hole. So when you have a design that has a hole in it, you can select the quick stitch with the auto hole. Now, when I select that, I don't know if you can see it, but it's got 2 lines, one on the inner circle and one on the outer circle of that font. And now this quickly creates a font or a fill pattern. Let me zoom in so you guys can see. So you can see it's created a fill pattern. And what I say, even though this is considered the down and dirty and all that kind of stuff, I can still edit things. So you see all these little nodes? If I go home and edit points, this is where the little points will come up. So I can change them to from round by holding the shift. I can create a sharp point by holding the shift. I'm going to click undo. Remember, you have unlimited undo, so don't be afraid to play around. And one more undo. I can add notes. So see how there's kind of a space here? I can just go ahead and click there, and I'm going to insert a point, and I'm going to click right on that line. And you can insert points, you can delete points, and if you are familiar with Bezier tools, you can convert it to a Bezier tool. But if you'll notice here, I have in my cursor, I have a little plus sign because I am in insert points. So whenever I'm up here and I click anything in any of my tabs and it's an action, it's going to hang on in my cursor until I right click and let go. So see, now it's back to a cursor. Now I can come and I can start moving things around. But this is what I'm saying. So even though quick create is what I call down and dirty, it's very easy to come in and play afterwards and change things. If I don't like the fill, I can come up here and I can right click and go to properties and change the fill to something else. That easy. So digitizing is really, really a lot of fun. But I'm going to go ahead and delete this object because we are not going to be creating a fill. Freehand create will do something similar. If I create the area, I'm more in control with my mouse. So I do not have an artistic bone in my body. So this is not something that I'm going to play with very often. And point create gives me a little bit more control. So point create is my personal favorite because I can click and create shapes. I can move things around. So I have a little more control when I'm doing things. And what you're seeing was I right click. Once I finish the shape, I right click, that created the fill. So you're not seeing me do that on camera, but that's what's happening. So what I mean is if I do this, and now I'm going to right click, and it's going to do what I asked it to right here. So I'm going to go home and delete it. Everybody with me so far? All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be over here in create point. I am not going to do a pattern fill. I am going to not do a satin line either. I'm going to come over here and do a satin column. Now, one of the things that you see here, oops, is when you're going to do this kind of a fill, is we have the big satiny stitches here, which is going to be our fringe, but we have to stitch it down somehow, otherwise it's going to fall apart. Now, I actually played originally with just a big satin stitch, and I found that I still had a couple of loose stitches. Now this one, I finally found a fill that I like because these stitches stay put. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to, this is a satin column. Whoop, you're not seeing it. This is a satin column, and this is what we're going to create. Now, all of the controls here from pattern fill, satin lines, fills, feathered, etc., all of this can be controlled here. So I'm going to come over here to the satin area, and I'm going to click on the fill, and I'm going to change this fill to number 262, which is, it's under gradients and lace, and it's 262. And if you can see, it kind of has a satin, and then there's a row of stitches, and then a satin. So I'm going to tell it okay. And one thing when I am creating a font is you want to think about the stitch order. Because if I stitch this first and then stitch this, the down part, this is going to stitch on top. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stitch this little part of the F first, and then I'm going to come and stitch this part of the F, and I'm going to come and stitch this part of the F. I am personally not going to add this little on the bottom. You can if you want. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the satin line here. I'm going to zoom in a bit so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm using this font that you're seeing behind it, the image, just as a guide. All right, just so that I can follow a letter. So I'll click on the satin column, and I'm going to start about halfway in this column here, because I want to secure my stitches. And I'm going to click and click, and I'm going to just kind of come up and down, up and down. And once again, everything, I'm not worrying about being perfectly straight. I'm not worrying about any of that stuff right now. I'm just getting my lines in. When I am done, I'm going to go ahead and right click, and it's going to finish. This did not do what I wanted it to do. Oh, that's because I'm in the wrong guide. See, unlimited undos are awesome. I'm going to, see, this is what I was, there we go, satin column. And this one I want number 262. Now, for those of you that are going, oh gosh, she's terrible. I work primarily in Mac. I only work on the Windows guide side for you. So my buttons are just in a different place, which is why I'm a little bit of flibberty-gibbet. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and click and click and click and click and click and click. And again, once again, I'm not worried about saying straight. I can clean everything up later. One more. So once I'm done, I will right click to finish. And I still have it in my hand. So I'm going to right click to let go. All right. And so now I have my little nodules up. I'm going to go home. And this is where I can straighten things up a bit. I can create a flourish. I can taper. I can do all kinds of fun stuff if I want to. So like even if I wanted to go, you know what, I want to kind of ease this up here. I'm going to keep mine straight. Okay. My recommendation is when you're first playing with this is keep it simple. You can get fancier later on, but keep it simple when you're starting. The other thing too is I have my grid on. Now I know like Phil Carlton and Don Lusk, they don't like the grid on. I sometimes will turn mine off too. But in cases like this grid, you can set the grid to the size that you want it to be widthwise here. And then your grid can become your tool. And also the way the nodes here is when I'm stitching these directly on top of each other, it's just going to stitch. Let me go to view real quick so you can see this a little better. So you see here where it's kind of stitching up and down. Now, if I change the nodes, do you see how it's going to change the direction of the way that stitches? So that's something else to kind of pay attention to or play with, because there's a lot of creative opportunity in goofing up. But this is going to stitch out. Let me go back to the 3D view. Now what I want to do is, this does have a little stitch here. And one of my tests, this was fine. But I want to put this on kids' clothes. So the kids' clothes are going to be, extra rambunctious. So I'm going to go ahead and come to Point Create, and I'm going to add another little line. I'm going to add a triple stitch. And if I come over here to the fill area and line, I can change the stitch length. Right now it's 2. I'm going to go to 1. So I'm going to have a really tight little stitch because I really want to secure this satin stitch down. So I'm going to go ahead and change color just so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to change it to a lighter color. Normally I would just keep it all the same color, but I want you to see what I'm doing. I am still in the Point Create because that's where I have the most control. And I'm going to come and let me take a quick look. What I want to look for is, oops, cancel. So I stayed over here and I ended up over here. So what I want to do is I'm going to come to Point to Create, and I'm going to create a line. See, this is where I'm ended up. This is where the last stitch is. I'm going to come up here and just stitch down the center. And I can just, because I'm straight, I can just come and stitch that down. Again, when I'm done, I will right click. Oops, hold on. I'll tell you what I did here. There we go. So what I did, so see how I have my satin stitch, and then I have my really tight triple stitch stitching down there. So this little center is really secure, so that when I release the bobbin and cut away the bobbin thread and all this comes up, this is really holding everything down. Does everybody understand that? So now what happened over here when I did the same color was I had this selected when I came to Point Create and created that line. So he was still under this color here. If I would have had this selected when I did everything, he would have popped down here. But because I have the film strip, I can just move things around, which is what you see me doing. Oops, finish that. All right. Are there any questions?
Mickey, yes. We would like to know, is there some kind of limit on how long you can make the fringe stitches?
That is something to experiment with. I have so far experimented up to about 12 millimeter width. So yeah, you can get pretty tight. I have also experimented with different densities. I personally like it a little tighter than what most people do. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So if I come over here to the satin column, and over here is the density of 4, and if I were to change this to a density of 6, all right, well, let me just copy this. Copy this, and I'm going to paste it right here. And then I'm just going to go ahead and move it around. So I'm just going to box select, which will allow me to move this up. So basically, I just made a carbon copy of this guy here. And I'm going to duplicate this. And I'm going to change this density. I'm just going to do the properties way. And I'm going to change this density to 6. And I'm going to change this guy to 10. Just so you can see what's happening. And I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this guy. And I'll select you. And I'm going to, now the pattern fill that I chose, I may want to change that if I go wider. So let me show you. I'm going to go to properties. So if I select in here, do you see this is the guy that I selected here. But as you can see, these will get wider and wider. And so if I'm going to do this and make this a little wider, let me zoom in. And I can make him wider. Because the smaller, let me show you what I mean. So I want this when it comes to these fills, right? When it comes to these fills, the closer they are together, I'm going to end up with a stitch, jump, jump, right? So I want to make sure that I'm using the wider ones that will compensate that. And then I can come in here and just add my. And again, I'm not worried right now because once I'm done, I can come and straighten them up. So personally, I just worry about getting the stitch, the stitch created, and then I come and clean them up. And I'm going to move him down here so you can kind of see him a little better. But yes, you're going to experiment because there is no one way to do anything. There's no one way that fringe should be. If you take a look at this fringe, right? This fringe, this is like 2 inches long, right? Wouldn't you say about 1.5 inches, 2 inches long? So you can go quite large. And with these little eyelashes, I made them quite long. And this one I changed the density to very light because I wanted it to be eyelashes and not so much a fill. And this one I had the density set quite tight at 4. Now, for those of you that are listening going, density, I don't understand what density is. Density is the tightness or looseness of the stitch. So a fill can have a very tight fill or a very open weave type of fill. And the way to remember which way density is, you want to set it for what your needs are, is think about a zigzag stitch. If you have a zigzag stitch in your machine and you make it a bigger, the length of it a bigger number, what is happening to that zigzag? It's getting bigger and more gappy. And if you change the number to a smaller number on the stitch length, it's going to get nice and tight. That's exactly what your density is doing. So if you change it to a bigger number, you're going to have more space, and a smaller number is going to be tighter. So hopefully that helps. Does that answer the question? But basically, just create a letter. Like if you want to create fonts, create a letter and then copy it and then just start changing it. So that you can have that same letter filling up a whole hoop, and just keep a note of, on this one, the density was this, the stitch, I created it this long, and, that kind of stuff. I use this fill pattern, and just make a little note. And that way you have a little workbook for when you decide to do fringe later. You're going, okay, I already know I like this setting and this technique. So hopefully that helps. Are there any other questions?
So, yes, I know that we are sort of running tight on time here, but somebody did ask about if you wanted to create a circle fringe, how would you create that circle? And then would you have to put something in the center of the circle, your fill stitch or whatever, in order to hold everything down? Any ideas on that?
Funny you should ask. I have a circle right here. So let me just zoom right in and I'll show you quickly. So let me zoom out again. So just like I did
What's
here.
your screen? We're not on your screen.
So just like, good, because you just see me like zooming in and zooming out. But just like I did here, I'm going to use the same thing here. Now I can get really fancy and follow this shape, but I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to select my point create. I'm going to come to my satin column. I've already got this stitch, this selected. So I can just come and just stitch around this way. Now, again, like I said, I'm not fine tuning the stitches just yet. I'm just getting around the design. And I would just keep clicking around all the way around. You can also manually punch in stitches if you wanted to. You could select a running stitch and manually stitch back and forth this way. I'm basically lazy. I want to just do this. Now, once I'm done with this, I will go ahead and right click again, because see, I still have that command in there. And this is where I can clean this up. So I'm going to go home. And in this case, I am going to change my view to 2D, just because I want to be able to see the image behind me. So now I'll go home. And this is where I can kind of play and reposition if I wanted to, right around this little guy. And I'm going to click on that because I want that to be round. But do you see how easy that would be? And so a circle is not a problem. Now, if I had a letter like D, for instance, I would do the round part of the D personally, and then do the straight part as a second stitch rather than trying to do the whole thing. And it's the same thing if I wanted this to be kind of a cursive, where it kind of came around and did the little loop there. I would do the circle first with a little space, and then come in here and then just do like a little comma looking position there. Does that make sense? Because I know I'm out of time, otherwise I would show you. But see how easy this is to do? It's like it just takes a little practice. The first time you sit at your digitizing software, it can feel a little overwhelming. But just get in there. Just get in there. Don't try to make a masterpiece. Just try to create something. It doesn't even have to be pretty. Just get in there and get your hands on the tools. You have undo. You can play what does this do game, but just get in here and play. Because once you start touching things, it will start that little snowball rolling, and you'll just automatically start getting it. But you're never going to get it if you just pet your computer. And I know that because I did that for like a year. So I would just pet my computer going, one day I'm going to be good at the software, and I would never touch my software. And finally I took a class and they were like, well, you got to get in there and play. And so I just got in there and played the what is this do game. And sure enough, once I started, it all started coming together. Okay, so I'm having a little too much fun here. So let me change my view. I'm not going to finish it. I'm going to go to view, go back to 3D. But you can see how it's going to look. And I personally am not liking this. I'm not going to get a lot of fringe here. So I'm just going to come in and keep all this even. But this is the fun part of digitizing. You just play with it and you take a look and you give it a look and see. And you can play. All right. Now the next Facebook Live, YouTube Live with me is on December 11th. And I will be using the software to talk about how to create thread velvet, because that's something that people have been asking for. So I am going to show you how to create thread velvet. And so if you have any questions before then, just leave a message and we will try and answer it. And if there's no more questions, we're going to wrap this up for today. And as usual, I will be around to answer questions for a little while. So December 11th at 3 p.m. Eastern, I will be working on the mySewnet embroidery software, teaching thread velvet or showing you how to create thread velvet. So thank you for coming, and I will talk to y'all soon, and bye-bye.